All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here for our Outdoor Florida webinar this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. We'll probably have a couple more join us as we go, but I would like to start by introducing our guest speaker. Today, our featured guest is Kelly Morphy, who is the president of the Florida Bicycle Association. Unfortunately, our second guest was unable to be with us this morning, but we're so excited to have Kelly here to speak about what is on the horizon for the FBA in 2023. She is the former executive director of the national nonprofit, the Walkable and Livable Communities Institute, and was awarded the 2021 Citizen Transportation Advocate of the Year Award from the Women in Transportation Seminar of Central Florida, and that was for her volunteer work in Winter Garden. In 2020, she helped organize the Love to Ride Florida program, through which more than 2,000 Floridians pledged to bicycle during the month-long challenge. Kelly formerly represented Guam in international soccer competitions, and today she enjoys being a youth tennis instructor and riding bikes with her 3 children. At the end of Kelly's presentation today, we will have a question and answer portion. So please hold all questions until then, or you can go ahead and put them in the chat as we go, and we will read them once we finish up today. Just a reminder for everyone that our webinar is being recorded and will be available to view on the Florida State Parks YouTube channel at the end of the week. And I will be sending out the link for that video recording after we finish up, probably on Friday. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Kelly, if you'd like to go ahead and get started, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. And just give me a sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great.
Thank you, Anna. First of all, Anna, I want to thank you and the Office of Greenways and Trails for the invitation. I'm relatively new in this position at the Florida Bicycle Association, and I've learned so much about what your office does. I'm impressed, incredibly impressed by your leadership and the staff there. And I am proud when I'm in meetings with folks from other states and from around the country to share what Florida has done to advance bikeability and bicycling through its Greenways and Trails program. So thank you for having us here, and thank you for the work that you continue to do. Let me see if I can share my screen successfully. And if you don't mind just giving me a thumbs up when it's sharing.
You look great.
Awesome. I'm taking controls here, sorry. So let me give you first, if it's okay, just sort of a high-level summary of what it is that the Florida Bicycle Association does and why we do it. In summary, the Florida Bicycle Association is a membership-based and membership-driven nonprofit organization. It's organized as a 501c3. And we really put a lot of effort into mobilizing volunteers statewide to make Florida better for people not only who want to bicycle, but for people who need to bicycle. And the reason that we do this is fourfold. We have 4 primary reasons and desired outcomes from the work that we do. By the way, my dog is going crazy in the background. Is that interfering at all with the sound quality, Anna? Thank you, I appreciate it. Of course, the dog would wait until the middle of the presentation to start voicing his opposition to his conditions. One of the primary reasons that we're in the work that we do is to improve public health through bicycling. I think that most folks in this meeting would not argue with the idea that bicycling is good for public health and individual health. We know that bicycle commuters, through studies done across the world, have a 46% lower risk of cardiovascular disease. We know that through bicycling, for just a 6-month period, we can reduce our blood pressure, and we also can better manage our weight. I personally find a lot of public health or individual health benefit from bicycling just because it helps me get out and socialize. And for me, that's very important. My health improves when I'm able to stay socially connected. Engaging in physical activity like bicycling helps us retain our cognitive function. Sorry about that. And of course, it's a low impact form of cardiovascular exercise. And interestingly, if we were to convert just 6% of vehicle trips in the United States metropolitan areas from vehicle trips to bicycle trips, we could conceivably see a reduction of 20,000 deaths across the country. And that's only looking at the metropolitan areas. So we believe that public health is a pretty compelling message when we speak about the need to support and enhance and grow bicycling. We also do this work to protect the environment. Bicycling is one of the lowest carbon per mile modes of transportation, even better than walking when we consider the efficiency of energy in fuel, that is, and distance traveled. Bicycling also, if we were to able to, convert to more bicycling, achieve some mode shift, we will reduce air pollution and noise pollution. We know that bikeable communities help reduce and prevent sprawl. And where we can do more bicycling and not rely on a vehicle as our primary form of transportation, we need fewer or smaller roadways. We consume less fuel, and we also don't have to gobble up land for vehicle parking. In fact, the Florida Bicycle Association partnered with the Florida DOT and the Love to Ride program. We do this every year, and the program that we held just this past year, in the 1-month program, we were able to get 130 people enrolled who don't ride bikes. Now, we had more than 1,700 riders enrolled in the 1-month program. 130 new riders combined rode almost 400,000 miles. And if those miles had been ridden instead of using a car, that would have reduced 11,500 pounds of CO2 from going into the air. So they're real, and that's one program in 1 month in one state. There's some real significant opportunities for us to reduce our impact on climate change and protect our sensitive ecology in Florida through promoting bicycle as a more viable form of transportation and getting people to ride bikes, especially for those short, safe trips where they could do so without too much trouble. We also advance equity through promoting bicycling as a form of transportation. Not only do historically disenfranchised communities need multiple modes of transportation to support their access to employment centers, but we also need to ensure that the youngest among us and the oldest among us gain and retain as much transportation independence as possible. Most of us are going to outlive our ability to drive by 7 to 11 years. Incidentally, women outlive their ability to drive longer than men, and not because men are better drivers, but because women typically live longer. So if we're lucky and each of us ages to the point that we've outlived our ability to drive, if we have retained the ability to ride a bicycle, it helps us retain the dignity of transportation independence, and it helps us avoid the pitfalls of social isolation, which is very well documented to contribute to early death. And in communities where we have left some of our most vulnerable populations behind by not designing for livability and bikeability and walkability, we have the opportunity to now create places where we see in a very natural form children, seniors, people from lower economic demographic communities able to get the places they need without having to rely on a single occupancy vehicle or a vehicle at all. Now, I always, in every one of my presentations, have to include at least one picture of my own children. So 2 of the kids in this picture are mine. And just to give you a heads up, the one that looks really grumpy I claim him. This is actually on their way to school. And I think the grumpy one was not quite happy to be going to school that day. It had nothing to do with the bicycling. Perhaps the most compelling argument for bikeability and bicycling in certain circles and with people who have the ability to enact really big changes is that bicycling and bikeability are huge benefits to local economies. In fact, investing in bike infrastructure creates more than 11 jobs for every $1 million spent, compared to road-only projects that create fewer than 8 jobs for every $1 million spent. And we've known for 15 to 20 years, ever since we started evaluating these, what's called a bike score or a walk score thing, products like Zillow puts out, that homes that are located within a half mile of urban bikeways and urban trails can sell for up to 11% more than homes that are even 3/4 of a mile from the trail. And in places where these investments in bikeability and livability have been made, we see a lot of fruits from their efforts. Let me just actually go back one slide. This is downtown Winter Garden, where in the 1980s, they had a dream of putting a rail to trail project right through the middle of downtown, literally right in the middle of Main Street, which is called Plant Street here in Winter Garden. And within the first decade of its being completed, the city had already reaped $49 million of benefit from it. And that was 10, 15 years ago. The situation now on Plant Street in Winter Garden is that they have 100% occupancy, it's redeveloped, and the bicycling draw is so strong that the city features bicycling and bikeability as its primary imagery in its welcome page on its Visit Downtown Winter Garden website. And in West Palm Beach, some of you may remember this state of West Palm Beach in the 1980s through an investment in a transportation plan that better accommodated people who were outside of vehicles. So public transit, biking, and walking. West Palm Beach was able to reform itself into a vibrant, bikeable, desirable destination. We see this play out all across the country, where investments are made in bike-friendly policy, bike programs, and bikeability, the returns on the investment are huge. So those are the 4 primary reasons that we're advocating for and educating people on the need for bikeability. How do we do it? How do we create this lift? At the Florida Bicycle Association, we're doing it primarily through 3 programs. Each of our programs, however, is designed to create changes that are making bicycling safer, more accessible, and more accepted all throughout the state of Florida. The first program is education. Our education program is the flagship of the organization because when founded in 1997, the organization was founded as a charitable organization with an educational purpose. And we have been working for 25 years now to reach thousands of residents and leaders with tools and the access to resources to make Florida a great place to ride. Our educational programs include online courses, publications, specialized classes, a speakers bureau. We're now starting to build some new tools online, including some of the events, forums that we plan to build in 2023. And we have successfully distributed thousands of publications that are designed to not only educate bicyclists about safe bicycling practices, but also educate motorists on safe motoring practices and driving practices, educate elected officials about the importance of bike-friendly policy. And we have a really cool law enforcement guide that's not only given to bicyclists, pedestrians, and drivers, but we also work alongside law enforcement agencies to ensure that their officers not only understand recent changes to state law, but also understand the importance of people feeling comfortable and welcome in bikes on bikes in their communities. But that's, so the reaching people directly through these materials is a very proactive but sort of general practice, right? We also have developed what I think is an incredible tool that I would love for everyone who's participating in this webinar, as soon as we're off the webinar, to go to our website and take this quiz and give us feedback on it. We launched this quiz in 2020 as an educational tool. We want people to have an opportunity to learn safe bicycling and driving practices through an interactive mode. And this safety quiz is it's a free tool. It's just a fun way to get some education and test your knowledge. I will admit that the first time I took it, I got like an 85%. I wasn't very proud of that. So I studied, I took it again, and I, like several of the people in this image, ended up with a adult certificate saying I had done well. It has multiple modules. We are not focused only on the adult cyclist. We also want children to have access to this quiz, and we're trying to get it into schools so that it can be part of the curriculum at schools throughout Florida. We also want drivers. Most of us as adults do drive. Even if we're bicyclists, we also are driving. And many of us, even if we're bicyclists and bicycling advocates, don't know the most recent laws adopted and rules of the road. So we put a module in there also that focuses on what the driver's responsibility is as it relates to safe bicycling. Of course, we know that the more kids we can get bicycling safely, the greater this movement's going to grow. And we really enjoy, as you can imagine, working with children to get them on bikes, to get them properly fitted for helmets, and to teach them the skills they need to be safe bicyclists themselves. This is part of our educational program. We conduct bike rodeos around the state. We partner with other organizations to deliver on bicycle helmet fittings, and we support other organizations that are out there actually teaching kids how to use bikes and giving them bikes so that they have that not only joy of learning how to bicycle, but also they learn the transportation independence that comes with it, and they can grow into that over time. Within our flagship education program is a flagship class. Our Ride Leader, Ride Marshal certification program is one of our most requested elements of the education program. We teach people how to be effective and safe ride leaders. And this applies to folks like me who go out and ride with kids or with friends, to folks who might be riding with their clubs and doing 150 miles a week and need to cycle through ride leaders because their club is so big and they need a lot of really educated expertise out there. The Ride Leader, Ride Marshal program will be offered at least quarterly, and anyone who's interested in gaining the certification can sign up online through our website to receive notification next time we offer it. We don't have one scheduled yet, but we're putting together the plan for 2023. So it will be coming up soon. And of course, as mentioned, you know, we can teach bicyclists how to be great bicyclists, and we can teach bicyclists to be safe. But in most environments that we're bicycling across the state, we're sharing space with other roadway users or with other users of the right of way. And so some of our focus at the Florida Bicycle Association is to ensure that, oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't realize that photo was so pixelated. is to ensure that drivers also receive education on not only the rights of bicyclists and bicycles as vehicles, but also the responsibilities of drivers and what new laws are in effect that affect the way drivers need to interact with bicyclists on the road. We are working with a coalition that each year will also be reviewing and updating the driver's license handbook and the and any curriculum that's developed for training new drivers as they go through the process of getting their driver's license. And we also offer online education through webinars. We have a virtual webinar series, and we host a best practices workshop every year that online, all of these classes and webinars and education are free of charge, and we try to distribute the information as broadly as possible. So once we deliver a webinar online or deliver some sort of online training, we almost always have a recording of it, and we share it through our website and our YouTube page. And we have a speakers bureau that is in right now higher demand than we can accommodate. We're a statewide organization, and the cool thing to share is that there is a lot of interest right now in bicycling, bikeability, how to become more bike friendly as a community, and how to advocate as a local resident for bike friendly policy projects and programs. Our Speakers Bureau historically has had both staff, volunteers, and board members responding to these requests and heading out and meeting with folks and delivering education and best practices. And we will continue to do that in 2023. But what you're going to hear from me in a couple slides from now is that we need help. We need help doing that. And I'm hopeful that some of the folks that are participating in this webinar have some expertise and interest to share as volunteers with the organization. And then the last component of our education program is that we share resources and events. And if you haven't visited our website ever or lately, you will find a depth of resources for any group that has any remote interest in bicycling, bikeability, bike events. Some of what I'm sharing here is foreshadowing, because we don't yet have, but are building some of the forums and portals that I'm going to describe here. But much of this does exist currently on our website, and you can access it at any time. The e-bike law, the Florida bicycle laws, the Florida bicycling facts, safety education, online training, and sharing of resources from other organizations, that all exists. But one thing that we're finding that we're going to build toward in 2023 to meet the need is that there are two types of conversations and inquiries coming our way that we haven't found another resource for, and so we think there's a role for us to provide the resource. And one is I receive on a weekly basis at least one or two requests from people who want to embark on some bicycle adventure, whether it's several hours or multiple days, and they need very specific guidance on where connections are, where trails exist, and where routes exist or don't exist. And there are some forums out there that are receiving and responding to these types of inquiries, but they're not collected into a database that we've been able to find. So we think there's a role for us to fulfill that. Secondly, bicycling events. We are a statewide organization, and we would like to be a repository for events so that anyone in any corner of Florida can come to our website or our social media pages and find an event that might be happening near them or in a place that they might be visiting. Incidentally, we do also get a lot of requests from people who will be visiting from out of town, and they're looking for great places in Florida to bicycle. They don't live here, and they want to know what's going on and where they can visit. And we do think that there's a role for us to be that sort of repository and creating the database, not only in a way that it exists somewhere, but that it's also accessible to the public. The second program I want to describe is our technical assistance program. You sometimes will hear this referred to as our bicycle infrastructure assistance program. We launched this, excuse me, in 2020 under the leadership and amazing service of a volunteer, Ed Barsati, who's the former executive director of Ride Illinois, and is a key volunteer with the Florida Bicycle Association. In the time that we've been doing this, we've directly helped more than 30 communities through their community members, resident advocates, or their government agencies, or through other nonprofits to assess what it is that they have going on or what they're proposing to do, review it, and point them toward that bike-friendly option. We believe that the scene that you're looking at here, which thankfully is actually not in Florida, but I think it represents perfectly the conundrum that we face in a lot of parts of Florida. We have at times put in what we think is going to be adequate bicycle infrastructure, and we find out that we didn't create the conditions that really make it feel safe, comfortable, and accessible for the people that we want to have using it. So this happens to be Paradise. This is Maui, Hawaii. My colleague, Dan Burden, who actually was the very first statewide bicycle and pedestrian coordinator for the state of Florida back in the early 80s, and went on to form and lead an organization called Walkable Communities, and then the Walkable and Livable Communities Institute. He snapped this photo in Maui, and we say about this photo that we're in a place that's generally known as paradise, and yet we've created something that looks a little bit more like hell. And we have the ability where we see scenes like this, and everyone on this call has seen a scene like this in Florida, and I'm going to show you one from Florida in a moment. We can transform these scenes. This is the school drop-off traffic at the high school in Maui. And through intentional adoption of bike-friendly policy and the implementation of bike-friendly and people-friendly projects and programs, we can look more like this, where the line of bicyclists getting to the elementary school, and this is in Winter Garden, is longer than the line of cars waiting to get to the school. Or where we take an environment like this in also, actually this is in Ocoee, but this is in Florida, State Road 50, where we have made very little accommodation for people. This family was actually trying to cross the street to get from the auto body shop, where I presume they had left their vehicle, over to the Dunkin' Donuts, I assume, so that they could just grab a bite while they're waiting for their car to be repaired. But there was no crossing within more than a half mile of where they were, and there certainly were not any bicycle infrastructure or accommodations in place. We can transform places like this to feel more like places like this. And if you live in Pinellas County, you recognize this as the Pinellas Trail. I cannot take credit for this photo. It came from the Tampa Bay Times, and I had a little photo credit in this slide, but I guess it didn't get copied over. So through our bicycle infrastructure assistance program and our technical assistance, we try to find very pragmatic solutions that fit into the standards that already are adopted or imposed for the different types of infrastructure we're talking about. Ed Barsati is incredible at finding the right technical reference and interpreting it for the project we're reviewing or the policy we're reviewing to ensure that we're meeting the intent of the community to become more bike friendly while also honoring the standards that exist. And we've had multiple successes through this program, helping communities do very big things and very small things. You know, trail crossings, adopting policy. Again, I mentioned already that we've already directly assisted more than 30 communities with this program. But one thing I want to mention is that this program also gives us the opportunity to help update the standards when they are outdated. And we work very closely with Florida DOT. We have a strong partnership with Florida DOT and other agencies to serve as a resource to them. And if you are a member of the Florida Bicycle Association or you become a member of the Florida Bicycle Association, then in the next newsletter that we send out, you're going to see an article about one of the recent changes that's been made at the Florida DOT in their standards that really came from a conversation between Florida Bicycle Association and the Florida DOT that led to a design change that we're getting ready to publish and share that is a first of its kind in the nation. We haven't found any place else that is as progressive in its support of bicyclists with this one specific design standard change as what Florida DOT is doing. We're very proud of that. It doesn't happen easily. It takes a lot of relationship building and ensuring that we have the right expertise at the table to evaluate these things, but it will have literally where the rubber meets the road impact on bicycling and bikeability all throughout the state of Florida. And again, that'll be coming out in our next newsletter. If you're interested in this technical assistance program, if you have a project that you would like our help with, please watch the video on our YouTube page that is Ed, that's him in the corner, so providing the overview of how the program works and what we do and what some of the technical considerations are. And then if you, after watching that video, would still like our help, there's a very simple form that you can fill out online through our website that will put you in the queue to get our assistance. Probably the least sexy and fun to talk about element or program rather within the organization, but absolutely critical is our advocacy work. We are the only statewide organization representing specifically the interest of bicyclists in Tallahassee at the state level, as well as all throughout the state. We help shape not only statewide, regional, local policy, but we also do support the efforts to influence federal policy through partnerships that I'm going to describe here in a moment. I included this slide just because it's mind-numbingly busy. This is the scope of our networking as an organization. And please don't hurt yourself trying to decipher what those things say, because I'm going to go through them very, very briefly in a little bit of detail. I mentioned that the Florida Bicycle Association has a very strong history of supporting primarily through our, primarily through our partnership with the League of American Bicyclists, but through other partnerships as well, including the IMBA, the International Mountain Biking Association, and the Southern Off-Road Bicycling Association, policy and funding from the federal level, which of course trickles down to the state level, which of course trickles down to regional and local levels. At the state level, we engage in multiple partnerships, as described already, partly to ensure that we can be a resource and make sure that the bicyclist interests and the interests of bikeable communities are represented in policy, but also to celebrate successes and to ensure that when statewide agencies are putting forth policies and programs that really do support bicycling, that we are there as their biggest cheerleaders. And along those lines, this is a great opportunity for me to take a moment to just be a cheerleader again for the Office of Greenways and Trails. I have been so impressed with what the office does since starting with the Florida Bicycle Association. I feel like every day that I'm visiting the Office of Greenways and Trails website or watching one of their webinars or interacting with any of their staff, I learn one more element of what they're doing. As I was explaining earlier, we do get a lot of requests for just information on where people can bicycle. And I 100% of the time refer people to the Office of Greenways and Trails because there are great resources on their website. And of course, the Greenways and Trails, the Trail Town program as part of their Greenways and Trails system, excuse me, is another method of not only celebrating what local communities are doing, but then pointing other people to those communities so that they can enjoy what that community has built for them. And I want to express our gratitude again from the Florida Bicycle Association for the partnership that we've had with the Office of Greenways and Trails. In Florida, we can say with confidence and comfort that one of the greatest things we've done for bikeability and bicycling is invest in greenways and trails. And whether we get all of the urban areas right or not, we have done an incredible job with greenways and trails. And that's a model that we can point to nationally. So we're very proud of that in Florida. And again, Anna, thank you to you and your team there for the work that you do to make it happen. Also at the state level, we are a partner in the Florida DOT's Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Coalition. And it's not the kind of thing that looks great as a graphic, but it's a really important coalition that is staying on top of updating and implementing the statewide bicycle pedestrian safety plan. And that actually, as soon as I get off this webinar, I hop onto a call with them. That is where we do create a lot of these relationships that help it, including, for example, with law enforcement, that help us all advance these objectives to create safer streets for all people together. That's a very important coalition to us at the state level. Regionally, we partner with bike and walking advocacy organizations to help influence, local policies and programming. And of course, the metropolitan planning organizations and their bicycle pedestrian advisory councils are a critical part of moving bicycling forward in Florida. This image is from an event that was done in Miami. I think it was in 2019 with a local bike walk advocacy organization, an organization called Black Girls Do Bike, and an out-of-town visitor from Bike New York that all got together to do some train the trainers programs and then to teach youth and adults some safe cycling practices. And these are the kinds of partnerships that allow us as a statewide organization to really have influence at the local level. And then locally, of course, we need to be engaging with and staying aligned with what's happening with our local elected officials, the general public, and most critically, our membership. Our membership are the people, not only who we are representing, but who are also representing the movement and the organization. The membership is something I'm going to talk about here in more depth in a moment, but at the local level, our membership is the key to our success. The third and final program I'm describing as advocacy has had some really incredible successes the past couple of years. And I hope that many of you already know this, but in case you don't, in the past few years, in part due to the very direct efforts of the Florida Bicycle Association, laws have been adopted that make texting while driving a primary offense that's more enforceable than it was, than the ban on texting while driving previously was. I'm I'm hopeful that everyone here knows that that took effect a couple years ago. That is a really big safety win for bicycling. I think it's obvious, but unfortunately, some of our safety statistics, not only in Florida but across the country, are dishearteningly related to distracted driving. And utilizing our smartphones while driving is a contributing factor to that. So this law was a really big, important win for bicycling safety throughout the state. Also, a new law requires drivers to give at least 3 feet when passing a person on a bike, regardless of whether that person is in a bike lane or not. A driver must give at least 3 feet to the bicyclist. If you bicycle on a road, like I occasionally do, then you know how close that feels. Even 3 feet doesn't feel like enough, but that is now law. And that was something that Florida Bicycle Association advocated strongly for. And for those of us who ride in groups, a new law now allows people on bikes to move in groups of 10 at stop signs by state statute. However, some municipalities can adopt regulations that are different from that. But as a matter of state statute, people can now move through stop signs in groups of 10. And if you think about what it's like riding as a group, you can see why that's very beneficial to bicyclists who would ride in groups. So those are some of our recent advocacy wins. But what I want to underscore here is that those wins take a long time. Those efforts are years in the making. And so we are constantly building the relationships and getting the education out there and doing the advocacy work to ensure that when it does come time to lobby and make an ask, that the elected officials who are in a position to ensure that these asks become law, they already are aware of why bicycling and bicycle safety are so important in the state of Florida. Okay, I just described a lot. And now I want to be transparent and say that some of what I just described for you is being built as we speak. So there are components to what we are delivering that are coming to fruition in 2023. But who on earth is doing all of this work? Who is making it all happen? Well, you. We're a member-based and member-driven organization. We rely very heavily on the people whose interests we're representing to be part of the work that we're doing. We have a network of volunteers, including folks from the Panhandle down to Miami, whose expertise they bring to the table and whose energy and efforts we couldn't do this work without. I'm somewhat new to the organization. I actually, my first full month in this new role was in September. I took the helm from Becky Afonso, who had been here 7 years with in the leadership role at Florida Bicycle Association and is now relocated to Arkansas. And so I'm still sort of settling in. I'm still, learning the landscape and the history and the opportunities. But one thing that I know for sure, and I have learned, is that we have an incredible membership that believes deeply in the role of bicycling to create healthier communities and stronger communities. And that membership is represented by a fantastic team of primarily volunteers in the form of our board of directors and our advisory council members. In fact, I am the only full-time paid staff. I do work with a team of consultants that support what we're doing, but we are primarily volunteer-based in getting the tentacles, I'll call them, out into Florida and ensuring the depth and breadth of our impact. Our marching orders for 2023 as an organization are to mobilize this network of volunteers and partners to really expand and infiltrate the local communities and ensure that we're doing the great work at the local level that actually feeds up to the state level. We will continue to have a presence in Tallahassee. We will continue to, as staff and board members and consultants, be at every event we can. But in order to meet the demand right now for bicycling advocacy, education, training, presence, letter writing, we have to mobilize the network. And that is my task and my goal for this coming year. We're going to build new communication tools and online infrastructure that helps ensure people who are interested in supporting the work of the organization and being the change receive the information they need at the time they need it in order to take action to really move this movement forward. So the types of volunteers we need run the gamut from A to Z. We need folks who can train kids on safe bicycling practices. We need folks who can present during webinars on specific topics, everything from sharing lessons learned on a particular trail to educating folks on how to do a self-contained tour, to, you know, as you see in this webinar title, Riding with Kids. We also need folks to go out and represent the interests of bicyclists at speaking engagements and events. And we are very committed to ensuring that over the course of 2023, we engage, train, and mobilize as many as 100 volunteers throughout the state. I would like to see even more, but we really need to be doing this work at a more comprehensive local level, and the only way we can do that is through volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, and I hope you are, I would ask you to please consider going to our website at floridabicycle.org and filling out the form that you will link to from this convenient little button, and letting us know the ways in which you can help. If you can provide even 2 hours over the course of 1 year, we will take it. In addition to volunteering, as most, I mean, it's not going to surprise anyone for me to say this, but in addition to volunteering, we ask folks to consider becoming members of the organization. Our membership gives us the voices to ask for the changes that we're requesting, whether in Tallahassee, in Washington, D.C., where I'll be in March, or at a regional or local level. Having a strong membership and having a broad base of members is the way that we say to elected officials and partners and other constituents, look, this movement is strong, people do care. And so we encourage folks to become members. And like most nonprofits, we rely on financial support from donors and philanthropies and charitable organizations and corporations that believe in the mission that we have. More than half of our budget does come from charitable support and corporate sponsorships. And so we encourage anyone who has the ability to provide us some financial support to please do so. We always appreciate it and put it to good use. But we really need volunteers this year, and we really encourage people to become members so that we can grow that membership and have even more voices backing the work that we do. If you can and you're interested, please also stay in tune with what we're doing on social media, primarily through Instagram and Facebook, because we are sharing more and more information that is relevant to your daily bicycling practices or your interest in bicycling. And we're going to be building some of those tools I described earlier as social media tools. So for example, we do want to have a component to, for example, our Facebook page, where we can collect events and activities that are going on so that someone can easily find them. So please consider, just following and engaging with us on social media. We also push out opportunities for classes and certifications and training events through social media. So that's a good way to stay in touch with what we're doing. And I want to close by sharing, before we head into the discussion and question and answer session, that when I'm serving as executive director of the organization and I'm talking about, this program or that or the other, it's never far from my heart that that what I'm really doing and what every volunteer that we have is really doing and what every member that we have is really supporting is improving and saving lives. And this was said directly to me just 2 months ago by a longtime supporter of the Florida Bicycle Association, an advocate and an avid cyclist, Rich Garrett. He said, "The work you are doing is amazing and saving lives." And I keep this quote close to me during the day because I don't want to get so bogged down in just the administrative tasks of managing an organization of this magnitude and importance, and forget that that's really what the mission is about. We're improving lives, we're saving lives, we're creating stronger economies, we're protecting the environment, we're advancing equity, and we're improving public health through the tool and the lens of bicycling and bikeability. And I hope that you will join us in doing that. And I'd be very happy to answer any questions or provide additional information about any of our programs or what we're intending to do in 2023. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly, for that great presentation. We really dived into all the different facets of the work you guys are doing this year and in the past. So really appreciative of you being here today. And if anyone does have questions from our live audience, you're welcome to go ahead and put those in the chat now. And we do already have a couple here to get started with. So you mentioned the Speakers Bureau and, the opportunity for volunteers to speak on different topics related to cycling. What is the audience of those speaker programs, and what kind of topics are generally covered or do you hope to cover in the future?
That is a fantastic question. Thank you for asking. The audience varies greatly. Just as an example, next month I will be visiting a bicycling club in South Florida, outside West Palm Beach, because they would like to simply get some updates on what we're doing as an organization and the ways in which we're advocating for their interests. The day before that, I'm going to a public library to do Bicycle 101 training with folks who attend library events. And we have school requests from schools. When in May, when we have Walk to School Day and Bike to School Day, and in August when we have Bike and Walk to School Day, schools frequently ask us to come out and distribute educational information or do helmet fittings. That's a very frequent request. We also receive requests from elected bodies. So for example, an MPO or a city council that would like some information about a specific topic, and we respond to those as well. So truly the topics and the audiences range in size and in interest and in their professional backgrounds. And I've done presentations to 5-year-old kids at kindergarten, and I've done presentations with groups of cardiologists who are interested in heart health. We receive requests every week for presentations, and we are happy to provide as many as we can. But if someone has a particular area of expertise or a particular topic they're interested in, they can share that with us, and we'll do our best to either use their expertise and get them out into the community presenting on the behalf of bicycling, or to accommodate their need for some presentation.
Great. Awesome, thank you so much. Yeah, I imagine with considering who our viewership is, we might have a couple of bike experts out there watching the webinar or watching the recording that would be interested in participating. So thank you for explaining that. We only have a couple minutes left, so we're just going to go with one more question. And that's going to be about bike infrastructure. I know you mentioned that a lot, and I know a lot of people think that as like bike lanes. What are more examples of bicycle infrastructure that we might see in our local cities?
Well, I would immediately just point to when we have low speed, comfortable streets surrounding us, that's bike infrastructure. Whether we're marking bike lanes or not, if we're designing our transportation systems so that where we might want people to be using their bikes to get from, say, their homes to their schools or to their places of employment or to the local library or the YMCA, if we're designing the transportation system so that they're comfortable doing so, whether they are on a sidewalk, which is allowed in most municipalities in Florida, or as part of the paved right-of-way or asphalt right-of-way, that they feel comfortable and safe doing so, that is bicycle infrastructure. But beyond that, if we're going to really get to a place where we have mode shift toward bicycles and we're accommodating every type of bicyclist, then we do need to understand that there are places where we have to have separated facilities. Sometimes a bike lane is enough. If the vehicle speeds are low enough and the right of way and the widths can accommodate an appropriately sized bike lane, that might be enough. Sometimes it needs to be a buffered bike lane. Sometimes it's a separated trail, which we have a lot of in Florida, very thankfully. And in addition to that, we're going to need bicycle parking. And there are a lot of, I follow bicycling on Instagram, so I see a lot of new, bike parking tools coming about. Like in most places in Florida, we don't have the density of bicyclists to need those tools, but I hope that we get to that place. And all of that infrastructure flows from policy. Policy directs the funding directs provides the infrastructure. So when I think about bike infrastructure, I'm thinking about, any street might be bike infrastructure, any trail might be bike infrastructure. But to get to that bike infrastructure, we need great policy in place.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. With that, we are going to wrap up today. Again, thank you, Kelly. We really appreciate you being here and sharing your expertise. We can tell how passionate you are about taking FBA into 2023. And thank you all for tuning in today and those who are watching our recording. I'll be sending out a survey to our live viewers here in a few days, so you can share your thoughts on future webinars with the Office of Greenways and Trails. And we do have signups available on our website throughout May for our upcoming webinars. So feel free to check that out as well. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to the Office of Greenways and Trails at floridadep.gov. And with that, we're going to say goodbye today. Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you all. Have a great day.